will share with you the flow and the house rules for today's session. So I'll be breaking the session into 5 themes, namely aspire, barrier, inspire, fear, and last but not least, the pinnacle. So all of these themes are centered around women in leadership. So this forum is expected to run around an hour or so, and it will be followed by a Q&A session afterwards. So speaking about Q&A, we'll be taking questions from the floor. So audience can actually ask questions verbally, or they can submit to us the questions through the chat box on the right side of the screen. Okay. So now I would like to bring all of your attention to our panelists. We have 3 amazing ladies with us here today. I would want to invite all of you to give them a big round of virtual applause. Okay, so we have Datuk Yasmin Mahmud, the chairwoman of Post Malaysia and Harriet Watt University Malaysia. We also have Zulera Abu Bakar, the CEO of Magic and council member of PCOP. It is also very fortunate for us today to have Nadia Khan, the CHRO of SP Setia, who also happens to be a Tier 4 member of 30% Club Malaysia. Thank you so much, Dato'. Thank you, Zulera, and thank you, Nadia, for participating and be with us here today. Okay, so while I was doing some research, some due diligence and homework on the profiles of our panelists, I came across some very interesting facts about them. So fun fact, guys, Datuk Yasmin is a proud Met Kelantan. She's a fan of Chelsea, the football club, and she's really into sports as well, such as netball, basketball, and golf, which makes me wonder, Datuk, what's your handicap? And I also came across that Datuk Yasmin had a cameo role in the famous Upin and Ipin movie. So the role that she was playing was Madmin. And interestingly, that this Madmin is actually a chief pirate. Like, how cool is that, right? So moving on to Zulera, aside from her role as one of the key wing women to Minister KJ, she is a Liverpool fan instead, unlike KJ, who is supporting Manchester United. She's a coffee lover, and Americano is her drink of choice, apparently. So, Zulera, I think we share the same lover here. And I found an article that labeled Zulera as, okay, quote, fierce promoter for women empowerment and equal gender opportunities in the workplace, unquote. So what an apt positioning for our topic today, right? Okay, so while on the other hand, Nadia, I believe she has been reading me like a book since the beginning of this session, because do beware everyone, as she is an expert in neuro-linguistic programming, where she is an NLP coach herself. Nadia is a specialist in the HR space with multiple HR awards under her belt, and she's really passionate about people and travel. Okay. Right, so I would like to set the stage today by starting off with our first team, Aspire. So we'll give our panelists to walk us down the memory lane and perhaps bring us closer to them. So if I may, I would like to start the question with Datuk Yasmin. So Datuk, there are 2 parts to this question. The first part is, were there any childhood heroes while you were growing up, and what kind of values that these heroes instilled in you? And the second part of the question, do you think that little Datuk Yasmin would be proud of the version of current Datuk Yasmin? Please, Datuk.
Thank you, Mazlika. Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to be here. And Mazlika, I must say, your research is impeccable. I went up.
Thank you, Datuk.
a lot of my past interviews. And I do want to say it's an extra pleasure for me this morning because I didn't realize until last minute. I think all of us, we just kind of say, okay, we're going to be on this panel, but we don't know who the panelists were. Until yesterday, I realized, oh my God, my two girls.
I know, absolutely. I'm so excited. Dato.
It's amazing. I've never been on a panel with Zalera before, but I am a great admirer of Zalera. I think she is the baton to you, Zalera. And Nadia, oh my God, she's my sister. She's been with me. And I must say, Nadia was my coach. She was my leadership coach. And when I went to her, I was such a raw leader, and she turned me around to be the leader that I am today. So it's such a pleasure. So okay,
you're just being very modest, Dato.
I mean it. So childhood hero. Okay, two persons come to mind. One is real, and the other one is fictional. So my role model is my mom. We come from, my mother was a teacher. She's a great leader. She's from Kelantan. So Kelantan, the woman is the one who actually calls the shots, but she does it in such a way that my father is being given all the credit. And she was a teacher, and she retired as a head, as a guru besar. And I always have such respect for guru besars out there, because I have friends now who are guru besar or peketua, and I tell them that you're actually running a mini nation. Your stakeholders, and the kind of impact that you're making, the stakeholders, you have teachers, you have students, you have parents, you have the ministry. And so she brought that kind of strength, that kind of tenacity, that kind of courage. And I think these are the three things. If I were to just summarize the kind of things that I had gone through in my 30 years of career, these are the three things, are the three attributes that had carried me throughout those years. It's about tenacity, it's about the strength and the courage. And I got that from my mom. The other person that I look up to is I can't remember the name of the character, but she is the character in The Good Earth. Do you remember the book? I remember reading this book when I was young, and I know I love to read, but we couldn't really afford to buy books. So somebody, got me this book, The Good Earth, and it's about this lady in China who was married into a family, and she was the one who pulled through the whole family, and how she turned around from being a farmer, and that whole story. I think I have not thought about this for a long time, but Mazlika, when you ask this question, that is the woman, a fictional woman, that had really inspired me. If she went through the trials and tribulations, and the character, the courage that she exhibited. So those are the two characters that inspired me. Your next question was, would my small girl be proud? I think she would. And the other question, the other way to look at it is, what would I say to that girl? I would say two things. I would say number one is that gratitude. Thank you for being so intense. I was a very intense girl. And then because I had all these milestones, and I was driven. I had a purpose. My purpose in life changed over the years. Initially it was just a purpose of getting financial stability, because like I mentioned, I came from not a financially comfortable family or background. And after that, it's about ambition, and then now I'm driven by purpose. So I've always been very driven. So I would say thank you to her. Because of her, I'm able to retire or semi-retire now. See, you're jealous.
We all have a long way to go.
Yeah, exactly. We're goodness.
I'm going to rub it into both of you.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would tell her is to just chill, because she was so intense. I said, just chill, girl. Things are just going to work out, And if it doesn't, it'll find another to work it out.
I can vouch for that. She was very intense. It was one moment I remember, whenever we have my regional boss coming in for a meeting when I was in Microsoft, and she'll have this perspectives, and And Fernando will always say, "What happened to Yasmin? What happened? She's so stressed out." And I was like, and I know my boss, she's just so driven. That's the reason. Passionate. That's what I call it.
Oh no,
Yeah,
here comes Microsoft stories.
yeah, that's rich. I thought that's really rich from you. Like first, I guess it's for you to set your purpose, really finding out what you want to do, right? And then I guess it's really lucky for you to be exposed to those kind of values that your mom has showed you. Courage, tenacity, and strength. I think that is really, really amazing. So if I can jump to Zulera now. Okay, so I think you have come a very long way and you've achieved so much in life. And I was wondering, what was your ambition when you were a little girl, a little Zulera? Did you have to pivot or persevere in order to arrive at your current position and to be the person you are today?
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much for this. And, I think firstly, I must start by saying it's like a complete honor to be here on this panel today. And as Dato' Yasmin mentioned, I didn't think that I would ever be in a panel with her because, I've always looked up to her like she's there, and I've said this to many, many people. Dato' Yasmin is one person that I truly, truly look up to. In fact, and I always say this, I think she has trailblazed for many of us women in Malaysia, really. I think being one of the first few women in tech many, many years ago, she started out in this super male-dominated industry, and it still is. And she trailblazed. So for me, she is like my ultimate icon when it comes to the tech ecosystem. Really, I think Dato' Yasmin, I've said this to you many times, and I'll say this again publicly. I think she's amazing in every way possible. So I think to me, it's an absolute honor to be on the same panel with you here today. But again, going back to. But again, I guess Nadia, we've not met, but I've heard a lot about you, and I'm sure you're doing amazing things as well. And it's due for us to meet, definitely. Okay, sorry, digress, Kate. Now going back to the question that you asked me, right? I think as far as ambition is concerned, I think a confession here. And first thing I need to address, I haven't achieved anything yet. I've got a long, long way to go. And I think as far as achievements are concerned, I think women like Dato' Yasmin should be talking about achievements. Like I said, trailblazing is an achievement. I've got a long way to go, and it's only because of women like Dato' lah, So, but as far as what I've done in the many, many years that, I am right currently, I think all of this is just a culmination of luck, of accidental career choices. And I think most importantly is having fire in the belly, lah, And I always say this, right? I actually, ironically, I didn't grow up as the most confident person, to be very, very candid, right? Confidence was not my strength. But I knew that I wanted to do a lot more because I was always driven by purpose. I was always driven by passion and purpose. So that always drove me. And that somehow, sort of manifested into the work that I did. And like I said, by virtue of luck and then by virtue of accidental careers, I got into tech, right? I wasn't even trained as a tech person, right? My background is in law. I was meant to be a lawyer, right? So by accident, I got into tech. Even into my first job, I got into tech. So that sort of built my career. And then I got into venture capital. I became an investor. And then I worked with a couple of MNCs. And I think, like I said, I've been lucky to be able to work with amazing people, men and women, right? Both leaders in their own rights. And they sort of charted the path for me, lah. So I would still think that I've been extremely lucky. Where I am today is really a function of the people I've been exposed to, the work that I have done, and I think I continue to want to sort of strive for a higher purpose, lah. So I guess that's really my ambition. There's a lot more that needs to be done, So yeah.
I'm sure your runway is a long, long one still, but I think we are all very proud of you, Zulera. Like, I can say that for myself. And I think again, we hear, about purpose, really finding your purpose. And if you are being driven by your purpose and passion, I think you wouldn't go far off from where you want to be. Okay, so ever since I started my career, which is not too long ago, like less than 2 years, I started recognizing the value of having someone to seek guidance from, to seek advice from, right? Nadia, if I can ask you this, what do you think? Can you share a bit with us the importance on the existence of role models and mentors in shaping your own leadership journey?
Thank you. Thank you. I hate to repeat this, but I am truly honored, as the two speakers have already said. Thank you first of all to invite me. And yes, like Dr. Yasmin said, we all know, we all get very busy. In fact, Yasmin also trip to Penang, and I said to myself, oh my God, no, I better have a good speech. So I need to look good between the two ladies, because I'm feeling like the small little, person next to this giant lady. So a bit
That makes the two of us.
Yeah, coming back, and this morning, just about 10 minutes before, I actually texted and said, oh my God, I'm so excited because, we all live in the same city, but we hardly meet each other. Now, the question you said about the importance of having a role model, I think that was definitely walk out of this messaging really good today, right? Because I really have to say, she is the iconic person when we talk about role model. Because I think, when I was working for her as her HR director in Microsoft, I was 30 years old, and I was my first HR director. I had a 3-hour interview with her. Guess what? 3 hours, right? And I was preparing myself because she had a reputation of she's really around serious and intense and all that. I was so worried, but it turned out such a wonderful person. High standards though, and I have to say, when I worked with her, I've seen her thrashing the masalis, and I'm very thrashing the regional people and all that. And truly, when you talk about having a role model, you do need to find someone who can, who you can look up to. And I say, like, Dr. Yasmin is one of my main role model, although she's modestly saying that I'm her leadership coach. I think it goes vice versa, because I learned about the business from her. And I remember when I was interviewed, Jamal, who was interviewing me, said, look, Nadia, she's wonderful in business and you should see good combination. And I thought, yeah, really, it's a good combo. So every young people, even for me now, I still have so many role models. Like Zulera was saying, we're also constantly learning and moving along, A role model is so important, because if you don't have one, you might just be walking in the park looking for mushrooms and never get back. If I can say that, yeah. I as a HR person, I do think that mentoring programs are really important, because sometimes some people where to find a role model. And hence we talked about networking. It's so important that you invest time in networking and getting to know people. Otherwise, senior people just say, okay, I'll go and finish my work and balik rumah tengok Netflix. No, but I think you really, really need to go out there and talk to people, find out and figure out who would be a role model. And the role model should be somebody that fills in your aspiration. And the one thing though, I must say, having role models is important, but don't try to be someone that you cannot be, because it will be like so tak kena. I've seen, in my job, I coach leaders, and I've seen, in fact, a few leaders who try to be somebody and like so tak kena. So you have to find your own personal branding, but have a role model as someone that you can sort of like mirror and aspire to be. So I do think that role model is very important.
Right. Thank you, Nadia. I think it's very interesting point, right, about building your own personal branding. So how do you discover what is your personal branding? Like, how do you know what is right for you?
Oh, that's my favorite topic. I actually do run a one-day module for my leadership program in September.
Oh no, you're not going to charge me, aren't you?
No. Okay, I always say this. First of all, you have to know yourself. Basically knowing what's important to you as an individual, what's your key values, because you cannot copy someone and have a branding which many you can see in Insta, something is fake, okay? But then when you meet the person, it actually is not like what is in on Insta. You got to be very authentic. So first, understanding yourself, knowing what's important to you, what's your values, and what is it that you like, because then it becomes very natural and seamless in terms of how you represent yourself. Because personal branding is really about what people talk about you when you're not there in the room, right? So what do people know of you?
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
every single thing. The way you talk, the way you handle yourself, the way you dress, the way you groom yourself, So and I always say this, I always tell my husband, I will never be seen in this sister Bellfire. I would not be seen driving that because it's just not me. So we used to have 2 Alfa Romeos at home, and all our friends are saying so crazy because Alfa Romeo is Jerry kid, right? But because I love driving fast, and I see Alfa Romeo represents that, and like so you have to figure out who are you, because your personal branding represents you as a person. And find out from friends if you don't know where to start. How did you see with me? How do you describe myself? So get feedback.
Yeah. I saw Dato raised your hand. Yes.
I want to as her student, because whatever that you heard her say just now, it was exactly what she taught me. So Nadia, do you remember? Because you see, when I went to her, I was already a very driven person, but I had this, raw drive that was very unpolished, I would say. So let me tell you what I had gone through with her, and this is the importance to answer your question, the importance of learning leadership. I'm not who I am because I'm naturally like that. I'm only naturally driven. That's it. The rest of it, I learned. So what she taught me was that, number one, be authentic. Nadia, you coined this word for me. You said your leadership style is authentic leadership style, because I'm very sincere. What you see is what you get. That's me, right? So that was what she learned. Until today, I have been remaining true to this authentic leadership, right? So that is number one. Number two, the thing that remember Emilio Umeca, this is our Brazilian Asia Pacific boss. And, I still remember.
Japanese Brazilian.
He's really good, right? We both admired him. So I remember going into this meeting, first time with him, and we had a big issue to solve. So we flew to Singapore, and, I had like bags of papers to support my point. I went in there and I was all flustered and, trying to get the meeting going. So, we went through it and we got through it. After the meeting, he said, Yasmin, why were you so excited? You are just making everybody, nervous with your nervous.
That's so true. That's so true. Okay.
See, so this is authentic leadership. Authentic or being authentic is one, but you cannot just be authentic and not learn some of the things that you want to overlay on top of your innate, style. So I learned this thing called swanning. You know what is swanning? Swanning. So it's like gliding, like a swan.
Oh, swanning! Oh my God, I learned something today. It's fantastic. Okay.
I have to learn this swanning because, I'm actually very garang, right? Because that's my natural. But when people meet me, sometimes they say, no, she's not. She's not. She's very cool, collected.
Or if you do your work well, she's super.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Town, okay?
Cool and poised above water, but underwater you are scrambling, furious. So those are kind of the things that you have to, you have to kind of learn. And all these things I learned from Nadia, and I learned from Emilio America, who are my, they are my mentors, my coaches, and sometimes they don't even know that that they are my role model. They don't even know that they are my role model. They are my coach.
Yeah.
But constantly look out for these people that you can learn from and you can emulate from.
Yeah, lovely sharing, Dato. Lovely sharing, Nadia. Thank you so much. I think we can talk about this all day long. I guess this is a favorite topic of everyone, right? Okay.
You gotta
So
ask Izam to come and ask me to come and run a one-day program.
yes, I'll control him to get to do that,
Maslika, I don't know about the audience, but to me, this is like gold, pure gold. Like you're hearing from Nadia and Dato Yasmin together. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm super glad to be here. Okay, so we always hear about the challenges, the barriers that women face when it comes to pursuing and striving their careers. So I would like to get some more insights on this, right? So recently I came across an Instagram post by Magic.
Yeah.
So there's a list of startups co-founded by women under Magic. So of course I was really proud seeing this list because there are some really familiar brands.
Yeah.
So I guess it is safe to say that there are many more women who participate in the startup scene now.
Yeah.
So Zulera, if you can take this, how do you see women's perseverance help push them through in the startup and social enterprise world?
Okay, I think before that, a good analogy is to take Dato Yasmin's point around swanning lah. I think that's really a good term that I've learned today, and I think you put it into context. That's what most women do without realizing, right? Because I think and looking at businesses, whether you're an SE or you're a startup, actually it shouldn't matter whether you're a woman or a man, right? But the only difference is that you actually use your female qualities to your advantage. And I mean that because we have innate qualities that help us drive or sort of manage businesses better, I would think, right? So I think, you hear the saying that, females are better micromanagers, macro managers, and multitaskers, a lot of this, right? But at the same time, you also find many women who are actually very technically sound. Right, very technically sound. They come from a STEM background. They sometimes choose to go into entrepreneurship. Sometimes choose to take on jobs that are a little bit more conventional. When I say conventional, so you take a more employment route. So there's always two routes to this, right? So what we do is that we encourage more women to get into entrepreneurship. Right, we get more women into entrepreneurship, get more women into building the startup journey. In Malaysia, we have quite a number, but we don't have enough. But I don't think it's a Malaysian phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon, right? The tech ecosystem, the startup world is dominated by men, right? Even the STEM space is dominated by men. So you'd still see women occupying very sort of traditional spaces, in traditional roles, so breaking into the tech and STEM space, we still need to do more. But again, there are a lot of people that are already trailblazing out there, namely Dato Yasmin, right? In Malaysia. That's why I always say that she's a trailblazer for us in Malaysia. But there are other women that have done it internationally as well. So I think to your question, again, what was your question? How do we increase the number?
No. How do women's perseverance help them push through in the startup SE?
How do women's perseverance? I think that really is our key strength because we persevere. We don't give up, right? We don't give up too easily. So I think being a woman myself, I think challenge sort of excites us, right? It's something that drives us. And I don't know, most women that I meet, most women that I meet are always excited by challenges. They don't want an easy route lah. They want to really work hard. I think that's what I noticed about women and especially women startups. So if you compare between a female founded startup and a male founded startup, there's a lot more energy. There's a lot more passion. There's a lot more purpose and drive. That will stand out,
right?
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
It is as if like you are giving me purpose now, like with all of this energy, enthusiasm. Thank you so much.
Women generally bring that. women generally bring that to the table. You know, it's just that they need to identify what is it that they bring to the table, and maybe that courage to bring yourself to the table. What's stopping us sometimes is that we don't have enough courage, or not enough people telling us, you know what, you can do this. So I think it's also important to go back for founders or startup founders or entrepreneurs. You need to find role models. You need to find people that can tell you you can do it, right? Because you need that support, you need that network, or you need somebody to tell you that this has been done before and this is not impossible. Because somehow I think women, we struggle with that. We struggle.
So I guess it's really about acknowledging the innate values that we have, and really, cherish it, embrace
Bring it
it
to the table.
Yep. And not to forget having a very strong support system as well. Yeah. Okay.
You need to get a sponsor. You need to get a sponsor.
That's right. Sponsor support.
Yeah. Okay. So today's topic is on women and all, but this specific question is targeting specifically towards women from certain generations, namely millennials and Gen Z. Okay, so they are relatively new to the workforce, right? And some people I heard calling them strawberries, or their characteristic has been perhaps overly sensitive, fragile, and to a certain extent people even say that they are crybabies. So I think this question is really, really apt for Nadia. So Nadia, do you think that is true? Do you think that they are really just divas, or they are actually a breath of fresh air?
Hang on, what is strawberry?
I'm hearing that for the first time.
Oh, really? So even from school, people would call it strawberries because of the characteristics of being, sensitive, fragile.
The strawberry, when you squeeze them, they get juices coming out. That's what they meant. Yeah. So in the HR community, it has been used, the strawberry generation. Yeah. So coming back to your question, well, I'll answer this way. I know there's been a lot of debate, and many managers, especially the Gen X and the struggling. But I always say I get the best out of my Gen Ys and millennials simply because I do that they are very creative. Now the challenge is, how do you motivate them and lead them? Because they don't want to be led like how the baby boomers or Gen X have been leading or being led in the past. Because for them, they want work to be fun, fulfilling, flexible arrangement. And it's just simple. Just give them that. I mean, I always tell the Gen Y, what I do is I just, okay, this is what I want. And I don't care how you do it. If you can deliver by tomorrow, so you can go to Starbucks, or you can do whatever, buat kerja pukul 2 pagi ke, but just come out with it. And I find that they're really, really, really resourceful, because I think the millennials and the Gen Ys, they lived through a different period. They were stimulated in a different environment when they were growing up. Of course, they have Gen X parents like us who probably spoil them. I mean, kids are like, they have their own rooms, they have their own iPads and everything else. But because I think times have changed. But there's also the other side of the coin, which is also true. They can be strawberry sometimes. And I would say that also depending on the family values and how they're brought up and so on. So to me, I don't see that as a problem, because every time when someone comes to me as a CHR or GM, say, hey, can you please talk to these people? Tak boleh kena marah sikit je dah gaduh. Or nak cepat je, every 2 years they want a promotion, but they haven't even touched the ground. So to me, my advice is, we're living in a world where everything else is accelerated. So when I was growing up, so maybe 20 years ago, 25 years, 30 years ago, we started, there was no laptop, there was no Wi-Fi. I mean, if it had taken me, say, 5 or 10 years to get to a point, I would think it should get faster for the young ones to get to that point, because, you have Google, you have access to everything. So I do believe that the key point here is how do we manage the Gen Y and millennials? And I'm sure Zulera would agree with me because in an entrepreneurial environment, you would, and that's what Yasmin would agree with that. Because I remember when we were in Microsoft, one of the we always have the offsite, and the offsite meeting and so on. And Dato is very, very creative. She wants something different all the time, and so we would say, okay, and this was, I remember, 2008, 2009, when we were going through an economic crisis, and we were all talking about how do we get our sales revenue and increase productivity, manage our cash flow, blah blah blah, and so on. So our hands were tied. So I remember we had some interns. We called them interns, and said, okay, can you come and do this video? We want to send the message through a video, and go and look up for Top Gun. And then this fellas look at this Top Gun. And you're like, you don't know Top Gun? And so all of us here, maybe the younger ones. I mean, Tom Cruise and everything else. And then we figured out, what year were you born? They were born the year the movie was out. So no wonder, So my point here is that I think leaders will have to understand them and figure out how to manage it and make the best of it. I still feel it. The onus is on us leaders to get the best out of them. Right? They are our future generation, and how they are going to be will depend on how we lead them.
It's interesting
Yeah.
to hear. If I can interject, Malika. It's
Yes,
interesting
yes.
to hear. I remember, and by the way, you've articulated how to manage the issues and how to manage and how to unleash the characteristic of millennials and Gen.
Yeah.
But I do remember about the last time we met, about 4 years ago, you actually were struggling with this. You were struggling with figuring out how to manage the millennials, right? But it looks like you have figured it out. So we should catch up over coffee soon. I'm just
But that was when I first started in Katia, when I had multi-generation and I got baby boomers, Gen X and Gen Y, and it's a huge gap. And baby boomers leaders say, Nadia, how do I do it? And they I have to say they're shouting across the office. I'm saying, so don't shout to them. They will just say a few points like that. I'm going to leave and I go to the next door company. Zulera, you want to say something?
No, I was just, I just sort of identified with just what you were talking about. It's a different breed altogether. And I find that the millennials are really the group of people that are really, really, to the core, driven by purpose, actually.
Yes, yes.
They want to feel belonging to a particular purpose, right? They want to feel empowered by that purpose. That's what I notice, right? So I don't think monetary benefits sort of drives them too much. Of course, you need to earn a living, but that is really not what's driving them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the experience that I get. I see a lot of them even leaving cushy jobs to get into the startup world because of this, because they're driven by purpose. They're driven by, what they want to do on a daily basis. Every day needs to be meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why they're always asking, if a boss or a manager is asking them something, they're always asking questions. Why this and that? And so some people can't take it, and it's like, why are they so? And that's how the strawberry thingy comes in, But all they want to do is, I need to know the big picture. Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As part of
you know what? Can you just do it first and then talk to me? But no, they just want to talk to you every day.
But I guess the analogy is this: if you tell them to jump across a drain, they wouldn't do it. They'll say, why should I jump across the drain? But if you tell them that if you jump across the drain, there is something that is related to their purpose, they would not only jump the drain, they will swim through the drain.
That's right.
It's probably that getting them, they need to feel that it is their choice. It is their choice. It is being, and it is a purpose. Not because, that during our time when we first started, I was photocopying paper. I was okay with that, right? But not the current. But it's okay. They are setting up a new games and a new rules. But like Nadia said, they are the future leaders. So you just have to find to it.
Yeah, ditto. Well, because I come from this generation, right? And I totally subscribe to all of what you are seeing, like three of you. It's totally right. First thing in the morning is always the first question, the big question mark, like why? Why do I need to wake up, right? So, I totally agree. Oh my God, we can go all, like all day talking about this, really. Okay. So let's not, get bogged down by the barriers that we talked about earlier, right? So now let's get the panelists to inspire and to instill some positivity by sharing some actual references on women empowerment. Okay, so maybe I can start with Datuk Yasmin this time around. If you had to choose which of the previous organization that you've served had the strongest women empowerment agenda, and why was that?
Okay, I think that was a very, very simple answer. But let me just preface that. I have been in the industry for close to 30 years. And I always say that the first 15 years were, and I throughout the 30 years, I always describe my journey as climbing up the corporate ladder in stilettos.
Of course.
It's more like slogging through the corporate ladder to the rungs, to the peak of instead was always in stilettos and with a baby in tow, right? So that has been the journey. For the first 15 years of that journey, it was a nightmare because the things that we talk about right now, things like sexual harassment, stereotyping, I've been through all of that. But but during that first 15 years, we were not even allowed to talk about it. If you go into a room and somebody make a sexist remark and you voice something out, you're being so, this poor thing. So there was the first 15 years, you go through it in silence. And your fight was just fighting through, not giving up. Now the fight is different. The fight now is speaking out and speaking up. All right, and that has been a big. We still have a long way to go, but at least the tone and the way we are fighting now is very different. But the company that when I experienced this change, this inflection point, and I know a lot of the millennials won't understand this because it went to this inflection point. It was actually while I was in Microsoft. And in Microsoft, what happened was two things that drove it. First is that we were losing women talent, and we had women talent, and that's why until today I always say that diversity and gender diversity is good business. I don't champion diversity because I'm a woman. I champion it because I'm a leader, right? So that was the first driving force behind that change. The other one is this lady. Do you remember her name? This Jerry. She was the first woman vice president that was reporting to Bill Gates. And she was so inspiring, and she pushed through this agenda. And because of her, and this is where, whenever there's any change, there's always a woman who make that change. So her name was Jerry something, Nadia, I don't remember her full name. But she created, I remember being asked to go for the first ever women conference. It was a global women conference where they got all the women leaders across Microsoft globally to go to the US to do a conference. And from then onward, there was this, it became a business imperative to champion women, agenda, to champion diversity in general, and women. We talk about diversity, you start first with women diversity. If you don't have that, then you won't get anywhere else, because diversity has got multiple layers, that's a discussion for another time. So this is a company that actually first put a stake on the ground, and that's very important. How do organizations adopt this? First, put a stake on the ground, have champions, and the champion has to come from the top. If the top, the CEO, does not realize it, nothing is going to happen. So that's why right now I'm really advocating that the top because leadership, the board is at the highest level of leadership. So the board has to push this through, and putting a stake on the ground sets the tone. From there is the HR policies that you have to put in place. And then after that, it's about walking the talk.
Yeah, it's really, it has to be a top-down approach exercise. And I really like what you said earlier about, you champion the gender diversity agenda because you are a leader, not because you are a woman. I really like that. I really like that. Recently, I came across a report by McKinsey's Women in the Workplace. Okay, quoted the following: research shows that company profits and share performance can be close to 50% higher when women are well represented at the top. It also will translate to a more empathetic workplace. Zulera, if you can take this, how do you see the importance of having an empathetic workplace environment, and what kind of other things that can transpire from that, such environment?
Yeah. So the thing is this, right? I'm a true believer of diversity, right? A true believer of diversity and equal representation, right? So it does not. Whilst I'm a feminist, but I'm just not saying that I am just advocating for women. I'm advocating for diversity. So you must have equal representation for any business decision. Any key decision must be represented by diversity. Only then I truly believe that you can extract the true value of the decision, because both groups bring in different different salient parameters to a decision-making process. Women think differently, and that is to our advantage. And men think differently, and that is also to their advantage. You should actually marry the two. So which is why it's very important to maintain equal representation at management, equal representation at board, right? 30% is a great target to meet, but I think eventually we should target equal representation. Right? It's definitely right. And again, in any key decision making, when you have diversity, you have better quality, right? And it actually translates in your bottom line. Obviously, you make better decisions, you make better business calls, you make better business judgments, and it's a no-brainer that it would translate in better business decisions. Now, the thing is this, right? The challenge to getting to that is also breaking the barrier of mindset. Because obviously, we are always, most often than not, given the history that we've had in many career paths, it's usually male dominated. Now, to trailblaze in all of this little path is where the challenge is, right? It's breaking that mindset. So more men need to come to the fore and say that, look, we believe in diversity. Therefore, we're opening up for women to be part of those decision making. So for me, just to add on to Dato' Yasmin's inflection point, my inflection point was really when I joined Cradle, right? It's really a top-down decision. So I was then brought in to manage the venture capital fund, which was starting off at the time, but it was a conscious decision to bring in more female leadership into the group at the time, right? So it was he's a friend and a former boss, also an arwah now, so may he rest in peace. But he was really a true believer of diversity and the power that women leadership bring in, right? So I think that was really my inflection point, and that's somewhat so. And I trickled that down to my management style as well. So I made a conscious decision that my team, we need to have equal representation, and I did the same thing in Magic. So right now, management is 50-50, team is 50-50. So for me, if we don't have equal, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And I communicate that to all of our startups as well.
Yeah.
And when I enter into any room, any meetings, when I don't see women, I get very irritated. I'm like, where's the women? Where are the women? Come on. We have so many smart women out there. Why are they not in the room? Right?
Yeah.
So I think more men and women should get on that bandwagon, not just women. Men has to be part of this journey as well.
Yeah, it is really great of you, Zulera, for creating the mini U's with the same mindset, thinking that we should have more women, we should strive for diversity.
Yeah.
Okay, so amongst the reasons that women stop pursuing their careers are fears. And I would like to spend some time to really discuss about the fears. Like, are these fears real, or are they actually unwarranted fears? Dato' Yasmin, you've had a long and illustrious career. So what was your biggest fear and how did you overcome it?
Fear is, I've never been asked this question before, but fear has always driven
It's
me.
fearless. That's the answer. It's fearless.
Of course.
I have fear in me all the time. I had fear of speaking out. I remember I had to tell myself in conferences or in any meeting, I make it a point that I must come out and say and ask one question, no matter what. And the biggest fear I overcame was speaking out and asking a question to Bill Gates. It was
Wow.
it was a very stupid question. And Bill Gates was not, so he gave me the sigh and then he answered, but that's fine. That's fine. I overcame my fear. Because the fear of, and the biggest fear to me is the fear of not being good enough. So I think it's very, very common. And a lot of people who are driven will always have this fear. But the question is, how do you manifest? How is this fear manifested? Do you succumb to it and just drown in the fear, or do you do something about it? And I think this is what differentiates a person who will come out of it in a positive way versus some people will be overwhelmed. So you just have to overcome the fear one step at a time. And that's the only way. How do you do it? It's just one step at a time. And when you make a mistake, you go down. And my sessions to the toilet to cry it out is numerous. Just go out there, let yourself drown. It's okay to let yourself, for me at least, I let myself wallow in self-pity sometimes, but get up and just get out of it.
That's really comforting to hear, one step at a time, because, sometimes people just want to jump straight, right? Okay, so
if I can just add, especially because I have dealt with both women and men, obviously, and I find this that women are very, I'm generalizing, of course, the exceptions. Women are a lot more critical of themselves, and they are a lot more perfectionist in their approach. So people you hear this as a rhetoric. This thing about a job posting that has 10 qualities, and the man goes in there and says, "I got 7 out of it, yay!" And the woman goes and says, "Oh my God, I only have 7." And I know it's just a rhetoric, but it actually is true. More often than not, I see this happening. So getting the women to just, and this has really pulled back women leaders, and I've mentored many, and I said, if you just allow yourself to be not 10 out of 10 all the time, live with 7 or 8 out of 10, and the time that you relieve, to not make it a perfection, spend that time on networking.
Yeah.
Spend that time on getting mentors. Spend that time on branding yourself. That will make such a much more impact to your career than being all the time 10 out of 10.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Dato' Yasmin. That's actually a very good reminder for all of us, right? Okay, so I would like to remind the attendees to start, sending in your questions. Please keep the questions coming. You can send it through the chat box on your right side, or else if you're more comfortable asking it verbally, you can also do that during the Q&A session, right? Okay, so the next question I think is very, very, very important. So I would like to get all of the panelists to answer this next question. So there's this study by a premier MBA school, IMD, that concluded that among the hurdles faced by women in their career journey is due to the inability to take charge of the ascent towards leadership. So the 3 key questions that are always revolved around this, that are always asked, are 3 things. So first is perception about what people think of you as a career woman. And the second thing is resilient, having the right balance between when to push through and when to call it quit. And the third thing is perspective, having control or not having control over how others see you. So, how can we address this? How can we make sure that women would be able to take charge of their own ascent towards leadership? Perhaps Nadia can start with this and then we'll go around.
Okay, this is always a challenging question to answer because I believe it really depends on the person. But I think in my view, how we can actually help women is number one, I still go back, finding yourself and knowing yourself. And having done that, we spoke about having the right sponsors and right support system. That is so important because uh, I guess generally women being hard on themselves all the time. I remember that they asked me once, I'm a sadist to myself because the more difficult it is, the more I want to improve myself. If you remember that, Yasmin. It's made up to be that way. And I think women should just stay away from this feeling of I'm never good enough or what would others think of me, but the reality is not as simple as that, and especially for Asian culture, I suppose, because there's this whole society elements of what your parents or in-laws or your relatives would see you, and there's this whole mix of your role as a wife and so on. I mean, I can tell you an example. My mom was a teacher, and so as a teacher, she used to tell me, oh, you need to spend more time with your kids. Or she thinks I don't have enough time with kids because of the hours that I have, which sometimes is true, but I guess, there are many ways to compensate that. And if you're not strong and you tend to fall on the trap of what others will perceive you, then you would feel really miserable. So for me, I understand what I want to be and how I want to be. Uh, it's about having the right ecosystem. And for me, I'd like to call upon. I mean, my husband is a very important person in my life, and he has been really fantastic in supporting my career. He hasn't seen me as just a wife, but the individual, the friend that he has that he can support. And I think I am where I am in my career is because he has been very supportive. And plus my dad, who literally takes my kids to school, mengaji, golf lessons, and everything else. And he's probably doing my children's school better than me. But that doesn't mean that I have fallen short of being a mom or a wife. I think we need to just compartmentalize our thoughts. And this I learned from Dr. Yasmin. I remember that he says, compartmentalize. So when I was younger, I used to, sort of like it's just gone off. This is the problem with I used to go to the what do you call the swimming pool, get my board there, and then I have my laptop there. So I'm thinking I'm doing everything that I need to, but the best, like that, you cannot be the best mom or the best corporate lady at all times. You just have to compromise. And I learned very quickly that when I want to do my own things, I just go and do shopping for myself. And when I need to do things with my kids, then I focus on that. I think women need to learn to focus. And the more we do it, the better we get at it, the more confident we feel about ourselves and not feel like, oh, am I doing good enough or not? And that's where the perception of how others think of ourselves is kind of looming in our heads. And I think being Asian, we have that because this is the way our culture is, right? The second thing I think is that you were asking about resilience and control. I don't think we can ever have control of it. And that I've learned very quickly because when I first had my first baby, I remember, in confinement, I was like, I went to see my doctor at 6 weeks and I was crying. And she's like, look at you, when corporately. And because, why? Because I had no control of the baby. So when you're in corporate life, if you're as driven, as strong, when you would have everything in control. But in reality, you really can't have everything else in control. So you just have to let go. The third point I want to say is that I'm a big fan of the book. I think everyone should just read the book and find out what's your strength and just celebrate your strength and forget about just trying to close that gap that you have and so on. Because the more you know of your strength and that you do it well, because it's a natural talent, it builds up in your confidence. So the core of it is, I think, self-confidence. If you can do all this right and you get to be a confident person, all these questions that you had, it's not relevant anymore. I mean, that's just my view.
Right. Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, I think key thing here is actually compartmentalizing it, because I think that's a really. In fact, I just talked about this over lunch with my bosses the other day about, we think that women actually do this pretty well compared to the other gender. Okay, so maybe
we talk about what to cook, and then after that we have to think about, I have to do the laundry, and so we're just naturally designed.
Yeah, exactly. When you do task A, you are actually already thinking of task B, C, D, E, right? I think we are designed like that. Okay, so perhaps Zulera can go next.
Yeah, I think, look, Nadia sort of framed the entire culture, compartmentalization, and, the whole career journey very well, Lash. I don't have to add to that. But I think as far as perception is concerned, I think there's one thing that we need to stay away from. I don't know about most women, but I think some women fear being called ambitious. I think we just have to stay away from that. It's okay if people say we're ambitious, right? It's fine, and I think it should be taken with a lot of pride to say that, look, I am ambitious, but at the same time I have a way of balancing my life, and it's okay to be ambitious, and it's okay to have a family, and it's okay to spend your time, and it's okay to compartmentalize, right? So women, whilst you can't have it all, but we can do it all, if you get what I'm saying, right? So I think that perception needs to be gone, for that matter. And yeah, for some reason in Asian family, when you're a little bit ambitious, they'll go, look at her, sebab tu kahwin lambat, sebab tu tak nak kahwin, sebab tu tak nak have family, sebab tu anak satu. I think it starts from a very, well, I don't think it's just a Malaysian thing, it's an Asian thing, right? We're very focused on family, and we feel that because we need to be focused on family, we can't do anything else better. Right, so I think that's really a women's sort of role that we have. But so I guess it's really a perception thing. And again, it's very important for us to highlight women who have attempted and have successfully done so. Yeah, I think it's important to highlight these women as trailblazers. That's one. And I think about resilience, I think Nadia also framed it very well. It's really about balance, bringing it all in. But at the same time, you must know when to give up and when to just let it go lah. Somebody was telling me about the difference between when to give up and when to let it go. I think let it go, if if it's not meant for you, it should speak from within. Then you just let it go lah. There will be another opportunity that will come your way that you'll be able to excel at. But giving up is another thing altogether. So you need to have a good support system in order for you to be able to move and soldier on. So Nadia's point about having a good husband is spot on, right? So I always tell my younger family members, my younger colleagues this. So if you're not married, marrying is an investment. Marry the right person. You're not marrying the person for the money, but you're marrying the person for the support. Ultimately, if you want to get somewhere in your career, you need the right support. Right? Because your family can make or break you. And I'm very fortunate. The only reason why I can do the things I do or work like 12, 14 hours a day is because my husband allows me to do that. Right? So that's extremely, sorry? Yeah. That's extremely important. I think the final point around control is, I don't think you can control what people think about you, and I don't think it should be your concern. What people think about you is their problem and their business. I think what's important is that you have control of how you manage your emotions, how you manage your daily lives, how you manage your routine. So you have control over how you react towards things. So I think it's very important to differentiate that. Don't allow other people's perceptions to control you. I don't know if that makes sense. So you do you, let them do them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. I think the common thing between you and Nadia, I think the point is about, don't care what people say, you do you, right?
But at the same time, I think we should also be open to constructive criticism. You
Yes.
should know when it's constructive and when it's just meant to berate you. Because sometimes just because you're a woman, they will just run you down, So you need to sort of, delicately balance the feedback that you get. Because I think I've actually sort of matured and grown over these years through taking into account many constructive feedback. I have a lot to improve and I have a lot more to go. And you need to be open to those feedback.
Yeah. So I hope all the single ladies here that are listening in actually take note that we have to marry the right person. Right?
Yes, that's true.
So Yasmin?
Okay, so I was just struck by this IMD study. It said the ability of women to take charge of their own ascent. I would really like to understand a bit more about the study, so I will research on that. But if I, so the first thing that I want to add on is that how far a woman wants to go is absolutely their choice.
Yep.
You may just want to choose to just to be working and decent pay and just being happy about it, and there is nothing wrong with it. You also may want to choose to be a stay-at-home mom. I respect that as well, and I admire those people. And then you may want to choose to go all the way. So the question is, if you choose to go all the way as far and as hard as you want to go, these are the few things that I think would matter, and these are the things that I have learned, and I've over the years also have coached women around it. So the first thing, if you really want to go far, you must make it known how far you want to go. And I've learned this lesson, in a hard way. A lot of women say that, okay, I'm good at what I do, just want to focus on doing what I do, and that's it. People will notice me. No. So you just have to the word I always say is your hand. Just put up your hand and say, I want to do this, I want that, I want to be in 2 years, I want to go for that role. And I think Sheryl Sandberg, in her book Lean In, if anybody who have not read that book, baseline for leaning in. So I call it raising your hand, right? So that is so make sure people know about it, and then you've got to do the other things that we spoke about earlier, which is to just have branding, to do the networking, which are two things. And I want to sound like a broken record here, branding yourself, networking, which we just like to do, but you have to do it if you go all the way. Now, the second part about perception, I think we're only human, and we get affected by what people say. And, the world that we are in right now with social media and with this, keyboard warriors who think that it is their right to make a comment about somebody's life, like they know this person from birth, it is in right now. So I think it's important that you have that kind of emotional resilience. I know it's easier said than done. So just choose who would matter. Just choose who would matter, and black out the rest. Now, who would matter? The other two have mentioned it. Your spouse. If you don't have a supportive spouse, you either change job or you change spouse. So of course, it's your parents. Because if you don't have that it's already so tough. If you don't have the support system, it's just, to me, it's impossible to do it without the support of your spouse, especially. And the other comment I want to add in is just, this thing about when to let go. I am very driven, like I mentioned earlier, but there's a certain time that I've let go of a lot of things as well.
Yep.
Right? When to let go is okay, you got to do your best. You just got to absolutely do your best. But if at the end of the day that still doesn't happen, then let go fully and peacefully. Because sometimes, if you hang on to it and you feel that if you let it eat at you, then you're gonna go back up in a much slower pace. So let it go and be at peace. Be at peace.
Yeah, I think the key challenge here is really about knowing when to let go and when just and hold on to it, right? Yeah, I think that is for me personally, I think that is really tough. Okay, so moving to the last team, the pinnacle or the peak. Well, we all believe that all of our three panelists today are already up there. And frankly speaking, it is an exclusive club. So I have some questions within this team that I would like to get the panelists to give us some colors. Okay, so there's this movement called 30% Club, and we are so lucky to have a still co-member of this club with us here today. So it would be really great, Nadia, if you can share with us what is the agenda of the club and so on and so forth. And I guess riding on that same, that club, I would like to get your opinion. Like, do you think there's actually a need for a quota? And do you think that this quota is actually just a male domination tactic to satisfy women at their levels and forum? Nadia?
Right. So I think first things first, there's always been a misunderstanding. And we always say it's not a quota, it's a target. Because I remember Tan Sri Rafida says, and she was our chairman in Aries. If we say it's a quota, it feels like as if we need to give discounted rate to women, and that you have to teach and all that. It is not a quota; it is a target, right? Because we need to fill that 30%. And why 30%? Because first things first, we start with 30%, and I believe what Zulera was saying, we need to move to 50%. But first, forget about 50%. You can't even get 30%.
Yeah, agreed.
It's a target because we want to make sure that at least all public listed company has minimum 30%. Today you'll be surprised that the number is so low. I mean, I just saw yesterday there was the IWD event for 30%. I'm not sure if any of you managed to attend. And we had all the male advocates speaking about it. I think today, if I'm not mistaken, we have about 25% of all public listed companies in the top 100 with 30%. And that's not a very high number. But we should feel proud that we're one of the highest in the region. 30% Club is basically a global chapter that was started in the UK, and in Malaysia it was launched by the PM in 2015. This idea is to push for this number for all the reasons that we spoke in the last 1 hour. And if we can get at least 30% at the board level, you have that leadership. And remember that Yasmin was talking about how you need to start from the leader. If you can get your board members, women board members sitting up there, then you have a better chance of having the next pipeline, having more percentages. Because I happen to be leading the talent pipeline 30%, and we're talking about how do you build that pipeline. We're now talking about even building it at university level, because the gap that is happening now is because we don't have enough, and not because we don't have enough good people. It's not because we don't have enough wonderful women who are capable, because then they don't know how to brand themselves, or maybe they don't have the right contact and so on. So there's a huge amount of initiative being put to put on a mentoring program, to going to universities, to bring to organizations, to influence CEOs, to influence HR directors, and so on. And that's so important, because if you don't create the awareness, you'll never even get to 20%. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that it is not a quota, it is a target, and I do believe that we're on the right track, because we're now getting CEOs and chairmen having a higher awareness. And we have people like Zulera and that's what Yasmin, you sit as chairmen and CEOs. That's a great start, because like it or not, it's a mindset. It's not something that we want to push. It's not even a feminist agenda. It is a business imperative. And if you don't set it right at the mindset level, we'll never get it right for the business, because the rest is right. If you have 50-50, you've got a robust team. The diverse thinking brings out a lot of benefits to the organization. Okay?
Yeah.
So, okay, now we all have to remember, do not ever say there is a quota, but instead it is a target. Yes.
Because we are capable, not because we are given a discounted rate.
Yes, agreed.
Yes, and I believe you all have to start from somewhere, right? Okay, so I came across this concept called men who pause, not menopause, but men who pause. So it is about men who actually take a pause and look at their surroundings, look at their women's counterpart, trying to understand what and how can they help them to move forward, to be better at work. So, Dr. Yasmin, do you think that men pause enough? Do you think that there's sufficient efforts from men, or do you think that there's a lack of efforts in that environment? In that department.
Well, comparing to where I came from, of course, there has been a tremendous shift. When I was at your age, Maslika, I used to be called a sweet young thing. It was, sweet young thing, you send her lah. Everybody will, send her sweet young thing first. And then, my bosses would say things, and I was looking for a multinational, mind you. But bosses would say that, no, she's very good, but we must milk every inch out of her before she gets married, get pregnant, and have babies. So it was allowed to say, and I just smiled in silence. So where we have come from, I would say that we made a lot of progress. Men now wouldn't dare say those things they used to say, and now we are getting them to do this pausing, right? Pause, but it's not enough. And it's come a long way, but we have such a long way to go. And I think going to what Nadia, I was there at the Parliament hall to announce that 30% target. That was how many years ago, yeah, Nadia? I think it was 10 years ago.
2015. That was 2015. Actually.
Almost 10 years ago, right? And we have moved, and I'm going to give you some stats. We have moved from, at that time, there was only 7% of women on boards in the Bursa. Now it's at 17%. So in almost 10 years, we have moved 10 points. So is that good or bad? Because we do have this target of percent. So where I would say right now is that it shows that we don't have enough men pausing, because we should 30%. We need to be. If we say that is a business imperative, that it is absolutely crucial for the success of the business, then we are in red zone, right? We are red flagging because we are only at 70%. This Muhammad Yunus said a quote, and I like this quote, said that half a nation is made of women. So if we don't engage women, we don't get to participate. We are only half a nation, right? So it is a business imperative to do that. So to the point of what Nadia was saying, I think, Nadia, I want to be a bit controversial here. I am confident that, that there are enough women for sure, right? And maybe that target ought to be a quota. I'm being controversial. I'm still in two minds, by the way, yeah? Because you're right to be said that I ought to be where I am because of a handicap system. But on the other hand, there are so many women out there who are capable, and we know that it is a business imperative. But why isn't it happening? Why is this change not happening faster? So maybe it needed a bit of an extra push, extra fire, maybe not all the time, maybe for the next couple of years to double down on this target. So that there is that inflection point of change. And to do this, we must have men, leaders, generally leaders. Unfortunately, they're not. Most of the leaders now are men. But if you look at it, right, on the listed companies, there's some stats which I was doing, so I'm just gonna share that with you, right? So overall, it's at 70%, but the top 100 companies on Bursa, which has more than 30% women on board, they're 36%. There are 36 companies right now on Bursa, out of the Bursa top 100, that's got 30%. Right? And then you look at this, some trailblazers, Financial Group, 57%. Bursa, I got this facts from the 30% club, Nadia. Bursa is 55%, Petronas 50%. So they're already at that kind of best of breed. However, there are still companies with zero representation of women, right? So I think if we were not to say this, and if this is not coming from women, because it's coming from women, it could say that we are invested in it, but it should be coming from leaders. So what the 30% club is doing, which is really important, is to go out there and make it a case known that it is a business imperative and to have men to check. We have trailblazing men like that Arwah Nazrin. Oh, he is really amazing. Idris Jala, I know, is one of them, right?
Yeah.
So our very DRB group, the Street Side Faisal, I know him. He's a very, very a great champion for diversity as well. So I think as long as we have this kind of men leaders who are championing this diversity agenda as a business imperative, not because as a social imperative, as a business imperative. I think we need to somehow find a way to light the fire behind this. So maybe Nadia, about harder target.
Yeah. And if I can just add on, I think what Dato says is so true, because sometimes you got to get the rotan out a little bit in a way, but but it's so true. I think I've been involved in this since 2015, and I kept saying, we've got to stop talking to the converts, the converted ones, because we're talking to women, and we have to talk to the ones who are in the ecosystem, which is the man, right? And in the longer term, I would say, as I say, it's a mindset. I mean, like for me, I have two boys, 23, Adam is 23, and Daniel's 19, right? And I always say that even though I don't have daughters, but I have a role to play to ensure that my two sons grow up thinking and believing that that women have to be respected, and they are as capable as it. So then you can see in the future, the thinking is very different. Anyway, I'm not pushing the agenda sometimes. Because the mindset is, apa ni, feminist agenda again and again. It's not about that. And someone actually said to me, why do you really have to fight for a seat? It's not about fighting for a seat, because it's not there in the mindset. And to go back to what I said earlier on, we do have women out there, but if they're not being supported and they're not being surfaced by men who are leaders, they will never get the opportunity. And then again, it comes to that self-limitation of, I'm not good enough, and so on and so on. So it's just a cycle.
Yeah. Really hope that, our male listeners listen to this, and start pausing and, look at us, try to drive this agenda with us. All right. So I do have a question that initially I actually want to ask all of you. I'm not too sure if time actually allows that. Anyone would want to take this question, please feel free. So this is a set of a twin question. So the first part of the question is it lonely being up there, and how do you deal with it? And the second part of the question is, a preface of the second part of the question is, I came across this leadership theory that says that talks about knowing when to slow down, knowing when to move aside when you are still relevant, instead of moving aside when you're no longer relevant. Okay, so please feel free.
The difficult question it requires to be very candid about it. But again, maybe I'll take the first one about being lonely up there. Maybe the two other panelists would have a lot to say about this as well. So it's a bit of a paradox, because you would think that the higher you rise in your career, you would have a lot more people around you. But the opposite is true, and you never really realize how lonely it is until you're actually there. And I will say this candidly. Because the kind of interaction that you would have with people will change drastically, because your peers will no longer look at you as peers anymore. Your colleagues will never look at you as peers anymore, because they feel that you're constantly judging them. Right. So, I mean, that is reality of being a leader, I would say. But I guess it's a different kind of loneliness, and one you would get used to it, and you would find people that are your peers. So, which is why I think the higher you go, you would need to find like-minded people who understand your journey, people who have been there, women, especially if you're a women who have been there. So I think Dato' Yasmin would remember this very early on in my journey. Actually, I think it wasn't Cradle, but when I got into my position in Magic, she was the first few people that I actually reached out to, because I needed some advice as to what do I do and how do I go about this journey, because I was transitioning to a bigger role, right? It was a bigger role. It was uncharted territory for me. It was not unfamiliar industry, but the role was new for me, right? It's uncharted. So in that sense, I was feeling a little lonely at the time. So I reached out to Yasmin, and I think as gracious and as generous as she was, she actually made time for me, although she hadn't actually met me in a while before I reached out to her. She made time. She made time. She met me. I think that, if you remember, it was in PJ. She spent, I think, about 2 hours with me. So I'm very grateful for that chat that we had. And she continued to, offer me advice through SMS, text messages, and whatnot. So that sort of helped me through. And I think from time to time, I do reach out to her and other leaders. So yes, the short answer, it is lonely, but you need to find a way to find people that can support you through that journey.
Yeah. So I will because I do have a lot to share in this, but I will just say that yes, it is true. It is lonely, but you gotta have your girl squad.
Yeah.
I have my squad. I have people squads. People that you go to who are like-minded, who understand who you are, who understand who you truly are. You can just let your head down. You can, put your feet up on the chair, and you can just, I'm sorry. I think a lot of this is a big group, right? Because I'm gonna say, just bitch it out. You just gotta find ways for you to just bitch it out, and you gotta have your squad to that. So it's important, girls. Your girlfriends, are going to be so important as you go. Of course, you could be guy friends too. I mean, I in my squad, there are the guys that come in, and they are the ones who are the posting guys, right? So that's number one. And the second thing you were asking is, knowing when to slow down. And I went through this journey. I'm on the next phase of my life, and I'm truly semi-retired. I have consciously made a decision to not go into any more executive positions, and with that comes a whole lot of emotional, because you used to be so in charge. You used to say, I want to do this, and just go and do it. In non-executive, you can only advise, right? Even the chairman, I'm non-executive, so I always make it a point that I don't have any executive powers. The power that I have is only during the formal decisions, and the formal decisions that I make is only during the board meeting or fully minuted. If I make any comment outside of the board meetings, it is only informal. It is only like the people in Post Malaysia knows, they call it soalan bocor, because soalan bocor to the discussion, and it's really tough because I spent how many years being there, but now I got to take a sit back, and in a way you kind of feel that I'm not so relevant anymore because you don't hold that position, right? But you just got to just like I said, make your decision, stick to it, know who matters, and that's it. You do you, like Zulera said.
Right. That's really lovely and intimate sharing, I feel. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Dato'. Nadia?
Well, I can't agree more with the two ladies, and it's so true. You do get lonely sometimes because you can't just share everything to your team members, and you can't just be yourself. I mean, that change just had that day, and you're like, God, I can't believe and just say whatever you want to, because they will judge you. You're the leader, right? You're supposed to be, calm, and you're supposed to be the one who rise up and everybody. And you're human, right? You have your own low days, and I have had my moments when I just go to the toilet and just cry out. I mean, I'm HR director, just to cry out. That doesn't mean you're weak, but you don't cry out in the meeting or in the boardroom, right? I mean, that's not so good. But it's true. But I also believe that you need people who understand you, who will not judge you, and you can just be you. Just be yourself. Just stay out, download, finish whatever you can, And moved on, right? And I can't say this again more than what I've said just now. And I think for me, my spouse is very important because I go home and I just say like, I don't care, you just listen. You don't have to say anything, you just listen. When you're lonely, the only person that you talk to is someone that knows you best and you know that will not judge you, right? Because every time, every moment we're out there, we're just being judged, especially so when you're at the level. And you represent the company. So every single thing, or you represent whatever entity that you're working with. So you're always holding on something. I think there's no way that you're completely yourself, 100% when you're at work, because there's small percentage and you got to I won't say basket, but you got to just jaga. So that's so true. And I think about letting go, knowing when to let go. For me, it has been quite a journey. I've had my ups and downs, because I'm also very driven and very passionate about what I do. Sometimes I think the passion that I do is not that I have it not good, because one of my colleagues said, no problem with you, Nadia, you're too passionate about what you're doing. So when you don't get to where you are, you're just so frustrated. But I've learned to let go, especially so when my baby was growing up. You say, okay, I've learned to let go and say, hey, sometimes you just need to think that it's not the time yet, and that's why it happened. So it's okay. And I have this phrase always in my mind, which is it shall pass. For whatever that I'm going through, go through it and just say it shall pass. Because I'm not so alim, but I rather think that I'm a bit more spiritual. I say, Allah will not give you something that you can never handle. And if you are not getting what you want, it's probably not your time yet. So that's lesson.
Absolutely. Well
Yep.
said. And that's it.
Yes, really well said.
Yeah, if you do your best, and that's it. The rest of it is not meant to be. If you all you can do is just do your best.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, then it is not meant to be.
And
Yes,
sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. You don't get what you want,
Absolutely. That I truly subscribe
which you
to.
only find out later.
Yes, exactly. And you're like, thank God.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Okay, so I guess it's time for us to move on to the Q&A session. We've been flooded with a lot of questions. So let's jump straight into the first question we get from Hazwani. So Hazwani asks, so there's no, I don't think she has assigned this question to anyone. So I guess anyone who would like to answer can answer this question. Okay, so the question is, women face more obstacles in man-led and man-dominated organizations. Hazwani would love to hear how the panelists counter men who underestimate women leadership.
I'll do a quick one, maybe. I'll do a quick one. So
Yes, yeah.
I'm in the property construction business. I remember when I first started this job, my husband gave me 1 month. He thinks I was only going to start 1 month. By the way, I survived 5 years, also got this 5 years here. So I'm pretty proud of it. So one thing that I've learned is when you are in an environment where there's much more male-dominated environment, we need to learn how to banter with men, because if you don't know how to banter with men and you take yourself too seriously, that's where you fall down. So the language and the thinking on your feet, and not to take yourself personally as a woman. It's not all about a woman thing. And I always say that I see myself not as a woman, but as an equal talent. So when you have that mindset, I think your reaction will be very, very different. So it's all about how you hold your ground, respond to a situation. So that's my take.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? It's not really about the gender, but it's about being equal. Okay, so we have a question from someone who I believe, this is a man who paused. The name is Jason. So Jason asks, how can men support or work together towards encouraging greater diversity?
Okay. Thank you, Jason, for that question, so I first of all, if you need to adopt this, the fact that you're asking this question, Jason, means that you already have this thing called gender conscious. That means what you got to do is you got to make sure that whatever you do consciously put on what I call the gender lenses. I get so infuriated when I see what we call manels, which is men, and I make a point that I don't want to sit on a panel which do not have women on them. Come on. I mean, you cannot find even one woman. Recently there was this, I think Utusan made a poll about next generation leaders, right? And it says all the people, the up and coming leaders, and there were no women. Out of 26 people were posted, there were no women. I'm not a politician, but if you don't have this kind of gender, if you don't look through something so important like a next generation leader through a gender conscious lenses, something is wrong. So I tweeted about it. I put it up and make a big deal out of it. So I think that's the first thing. You got to look at things consciously. Tell yourself, Jason, that you need to always put on that gender conscious lens. Then there are also things that you can do structurally, because if you keep reminding yourself all the time, you might forget, right? So there are things that you can structurally put in place. So first is to put a stake on the ground. As a leader, you can go out there and say, or push your leaders to say, adopt that policy, to say that we are a gender or a diversity, we adopt or we champion diversity as a business imperative. And then you can get onto the 30% club, or there is this thing called United Nations Women Empowerment Principles that list down 7 things that you can do as an organization. So then you adopt that framework and have it embedded in the HR policy. And then from then, like I said, walk the talk. So three steps that because I ask this question a lot. So I say 3 steps, 3 easy steps that you can do.
Right. Thank you so much, Dato. Thank you. And thank you so much, Jason, for asking this question. Okay, so the next question is from Akila. Akila is asking, who would be the best to mentor a woman? Is it another woman or a man instead? And why?
Maybe I can quickly take this. I think that's a very interesting question, but I guess there's no right or wrong answer to this. It really depends on what works for you. I think it depends on who you relate to well enough. It could be a female leader, it could be a male leader. So it depends on what works for you. But that person needs to know you well enough and can call you out when you're not doing the right thing. So you need to be able to have that relationship. So it really doesn't matter, really.
Right. Yes.
But if I can, it's important. Mentoring is role modeling, and mentoring is important. But what's becoming to me more important is sponsor. Having a sponsor, and a sponsor is somebody who understands, who truly believes in your capability, and is willing to act, to put their neck on the line for you to prove yourself. And I've been very lucky to have my sponsors throughout my career, without whom I will not be able to be where I am. These are the people, and they are men sponsors, by the way, who believed in me and willing to take a risk on me. So sponsors, very important. It must always be said, mentors, role models, sponsors.
Absolutely well said, Dato. Yeah, that's really it. Agreed. Totally.
Yeah. Hopefully this answers will really help Akila, and I'm pretty sure it is very beneficial for all of the audience as well. Okay, so the next question is from Idora. So Idora is asking, is it true to get the visibility in an organization, we have to work or give double from what a man would give?
I know Dato Yasmin's already smiling there. So I don't know. Dato should take this. Dato should take this.
I'll take it, and then I think Nadia also. So from my own experience, things have changed somewhat. In my first, in my first 15 years, you kind of got to work harder. Maybe not double, but you definitely have to prove yourself harder. It wasn't enough to just be equal and then get a chance. You got to be better to get a chance. But I think now things have changed because of all these kind of discussions that we're having, this awareness, this gender lenses that we're looking at. In fact, right now, I would say that for women, you need to remember, I talked about earlier, you don't have to be 10 out of 10 all the time. You make it 8 out of 10, and you then spend the time that you would have spent to make it the perfect 10, right? You spend it on networking, on talking to your mentors, convincing your sponsors, or developing a sponsor, building your personal. So that is what I would say, and I feel strongly about that. Maybe Nadia, you want to add on to Idora's question?
Yeah, well, we get asked this question a lot. My answer to this would be, I'd say it really, again, I mean, it's true what Datuk says, 15 years ago, it probably was true. It has changed a lot because, environment has changed and the education system has moved on. And you get parents like us who probably are educating our children in differently, and they come out into the working world and thinking differently. Because, I mean, like 30 years ago, just take a simple, basic thing. You hardly see men pushing strollers, right? I mean, today you have metro men, they all don't mind doing this. So there's a shift in culturally as well because of education and exposure. But I think whether it is still prevailing or not, it depends on the environment where you are. I do still see sometimes it does happen because the male superior or the male peers are still in that mindset that women are, not as equal to men. So I can't help it, but I'm a HR person. I would say this is where, if we talk about organization, HR has to play an important role in making sure that we drive this agenda in the company, create that awareness, because it's the ecosystem. How do we create the ecosystem? So it really depends. But to me, for the women, I would say don't feel like you have to work doubly hard. But yes, in reality, sometimes it happens. It does, especially in the smaller companies where people are not still at that space or thinking about equality and so on. We just have to persist through and like what Dato says and Zulara says, get your support system, get your sponsors, and you will learn this technique and the skills of how do you then go about this scenario.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you for sharing all of that. So we do have a lot more questions actually, but we would like to give this opportunity to anyone, to the audience, to ask questions verbally. So please feel free to ask questions. How do you do that? Is by clicking on that little button or icon with 5 little fingers. So we'll make you as a speaker and we'll get you unmuted so you can ask your questions. Perhaps we'll open for that, but at the same time, let's address one of the other questions that has been sent through the chat. So this is from Shafika. Shafika is asking, what advice would you give to the next generation of female leaders?
I'll just say, just be yourself, because today you have everything that is there to support you, the environment. I mean, as we talked today, I mean, we didn't even have IWD events 20 years ago. I didn't have the luxury of a nursery room, and I remember I was nursing my baby and I had day trips to do. I just literally just had to pay the toilet or whatever that was available. So today I think everything is going, it's all there. Just be yourself, grab the opportunity, and don't think that you can't do anything. It's all there. Just grab it.
And I think just to add to what Nadia said, we have the women today have had the benefit of sacrifices and trailblazers that's come our way, right? The women before us has actually set the path for us. They've made it easier. They've actually fought the battle for us, right? So we've got a long journey ahead, but they've fought half of the battle for us. So we're actually very, very well placed right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're pretty lucky, in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, look at what Dato' Yasmin said. The last 15, 20 years of her career, she battled so many things. And because of her battles, we've actually got it easier today.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Dato. You're like a warrior to us now.
You know, many battle wounds, but
Yeah.
that's passion. But it's important. I mean, there are also a lot of women who came before me that actually fought the battles as well. So it's important that women have this. It's a purpose for me. It's a purpose because truly, I believe in women empowerment. I believe that you need to do this. But to add on to what Nadia was saying, you also need to find your leadership style. Who are you? Yeah. Yes, you can be somebody that who's not you, but you got to find who you are at the core, and you got to find how do you want to polish yourself. You're like I don't know how young at the leadership stage you are right now, but everybody has got, I mean, if you want to move high, if you already have the ambition to go high, then you must be a leader. So so you are an unpolished diamond right now, right? So how do you polish yourself? And how about 10 years from now, how will people describe you as a leader? So I think that's also important for you to learn those skills.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Dato, for adding on. Okay. So I think there's a very interesting question from Rashida here. So Rashida is asking, how can we how do we maneuver in an environment where women would kill the other woman?
Oh, that is so true, and I've seen it. I've gone through it myself, being killed by another woman in a way, cried buckets and all that, and then that's real, that's real. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
And how do you maneuver? Find a male ally who will also help you, because I don't know why women are just so jealous of each other. I think women should just celebrate that each one of us are unique in our own way. We should just celebrate each other, right? But yes, the reality is let's not kid ourselves. The reality that happens, I don't know why. It's just women. I mean, among men they're just they pop, bro, right? For women, oh no, cannot. So I found that sometimes to find a male ally helps, find a sponsor. I mean, we go back to the same thing that we spoke about, but just accept, first of all, accept that this can happen, and hold your ground, do whatever you can, just be yourself, and don't go on the offensive. I feel, because when you go on the offensive, you're as bad as the other person. So that's it. Having gone through it myself.
Nadia, if I want to, because it's unfortunate that we always get this question because it makes us happy. So in the words of Madeleine Albright, there is a place for women. Hell.
Yes.
Let me try. And I have asked this question so much, and I actually have been asking and thinking about why is it happening. So I've got a couple of theory, right? Number one is this. Women who have come to that level have gone through a tough road.
Yeah.
So it's that you go up there and it is, it's a very privileged place, and so you really hang on to it and say, okay, I've gone through so much, and I want to protect this stuff. I mean, woman has very protective in nature.
It's the maternal instinct.
Thing, right? So I think that could be one reason. And the other part is the maternal instinct. So how do you go around it? I mean, there are some women that are just not as generous. Just have to accept this, them an ally. Look for other women, like Nadia. But I do call out. I do now, where I am, I do call out those women who are not supporting.
Yeah.
I always say this quote when I mean, come on. It is so difficult for us to go through it, with climbing up the ladder, the rungs of the ladder with the toes, with a baby in tow, and you basically slugging through the ladder, not even climbing up, right? It's so difficult. You know how difficult it is. So support. Why must I not be supported? So I think it's just calling it out.
So the way I look at it, just to add on to the two ladies, right? Just the way I look at it is, I would look at this because I've gone through it myself. So I look at these women actually with sympathy, because I feel that you don't have that generosity to pass on to your your colleague or your staff or your team. You don't have that generosity, so I sympathize with you. Whilst I sympathize, I probably want to make you my ally in some way or form. It's a reminder to myself that I should never be like that, right? I tell myself that every day, that we should never be the person that we don't want to be. So really, and again, I think go back to this one very basic concept now. Everything is in our intention. Niyat is very important. If you are generous, you're sincere to the other person, you will reap that rewards. So which is why I sympathize on women like this, because I've been through it as well. So I think like you, if you're going to be successful, you have to be generous.
Right. Yeah, I think that's actually a good question to end the Q&A session. So before closing the session today, I would like to give the opportunity to the panelists to conclude with some food for thought that we can bring back for our own reflection. Maybe 2 minutes each panelist.
Okay.
Well, I can start that first. I've always loved this phrase from Audrey Hepburn, and it says the true beauty of a woman is reflected in her soul. Going back to what Zulera says, it's the nawaitu, right? Everything that you do comes from there. And be yourself. Just be comfortable with yourself, smile, and the world will be waiting for you. And there's no people like everyone else coming up to do it. So just be yourself. So the true beauty of a woman is reflected in her soul. Audrey Hepburn.
Yes.
So maybe I'll go before Dato' Yasmin. We'll leave the grand stage to Dato' Yasmin, because I'm sure she's got lots of pearls of wisdom. So since we're going on quotes, I'm just going to say one thing, right? And this applies to both gender, and I think I would emphasize that really for my fellow female comrades. Be hungry, be foolish, really, all that it is, because at the end of the day, that is what's going to take you through. You need to have that hunger and not be deterred by anything. And whatever the path you choose, do it earnestly and give it your all, because I think that Yasmin and Nadia as well mentioned, there's no right or wrong path. You can choose whatever you want to do. But do it your way. Do what you want to do, because you have full control of your life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zulera. Yes, Dato' Yasmin.
Yeah, and I do have many things that I want to say, but I choose to make a strong call towards the importance of diversity and gender diversity, especially in the world that we are going to be facing, which is the world of this disruptive innovation. We have so much of it. We talk about 4IR, we talk about all the innovation that's coming through, and for somebody who's been through this journey of innovation, from the days where Bill Gates announced that there'll be a PC on every desktop, from the internet boom, internet buzz. I've been through all of this, but what's coming in the world of innovation is nothing that we have seen before. So I'm excited because you can really ride the wave, but you can also get overwhelmed by the wave. Right? So what kind of leaders do you need? I mean, you need to have leaders who are comfortable in this very in a world where you're not going to have you're not going to only be facing headwind, but you could be facing side wind, all over the place. You don't know where the goalpost is. What is correct today is wrong tomorrow. So it's so much of disruption. So in this world of disruption, what you need a business to survive and thrive, you need the richness of thinking, the emphasis of the absolute damage that group thinking will bring in this world is real. So for businesses to thrive and survive, you need to have the richness of diverse thinking. And that is why, ladies out there, we are needed. The environment in which needs to be created to ensure that we thrive is absolutely critical for the business. So that is what I want to end with.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think all of those, remarks being shared are really brilliant and lovely. I feel like, the session has just started. I feel like we all have so much more energy, and I'm sure that, our panelists have so much more to share. Um, I guess, or really, I'm sure actually, all of us would leave the session today with so much to ponder upon. So for me, what really sticks in my mind is, really finding your true purpose and starts with the, right now I do with the right intention. And I guess throughout the journey, if you really, arm yourself with the right values, like Datuk Yasmin mentioned about strength, tenacity, and courage, as well as having a strong support system, then I guess we all can actually try to be at where we want to be. But of course, it's important as well for our men counterpart, men leadership especially, to really realize this and accept this calling for, include us women in that space, in that leadership space. Okay, so thank you so much to all who joined us today. I think we have over 500 participants with us today. Thank you so much. Hopefully, all of you have gained something from today's session. And a big thank you for the wonderful, wonderful panelists, Datuk Yasmin, Lera, and Nadia. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Malika.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really don't want to end this.
We can go on and on.
I know.
Maybe we should do this as monthly thing then. It's a women empowerment agenda for DRB. Yeah.
Why not? Why not? And of course, a physical session would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes. I would totally love that as well. So thank you so much. I'm pretty sure all of our audience are giving you, a big round of applause from their own homes.
Thank you,
One more
Dato.
thing,
Thank you,
maybe
Nadia.
I just want to say one last thing, maybe since I'm representing 30% club, we're onboarding companies, and I think DRB probably should consider registering with and be a member. I know Post Malaysia is already, but the group.
Right. Thank you. So, of course, we'll accept the calling, hopefully. Thank you so much, Dato. Thank you, Zulera. Thank you so much, Nadia.
All the
Well
best.
done. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dato.
Bye, Malika.
Bye, Dato.